What if I told you a 1700-year-old instruction manual on how to become a Christian actually exists? Well, it does. Today, we're going to dive into this absolutely remarkable text from Cyril of Jerusalem, a kind of how-to guide for new converts in the ancient world. And it reveals one of the most intense and mysterious spiritual journeys you can imagine.
So, right off the bat, Cyril isn't hitting you with a bunch of dry rules. He starts with poetry. He's welcoming his students, they were called catechumens, which just means those who are learning, with this incredible image. He's totally setting the stage, letting them know that, yeah, the path ahead is serious, but it's also a journey towards something beautiful and, well, divine.
But don't let the poetry fool you. Make no mistake, this was a life-altering decision. Back in the 4th century, you didn't just casually decide to become a Christian. It was an all-in, no-turning-back commitment that was going to fundamentally reshape your entire world. To get this across, Cyril uses these two really powerful metaphors. On the one hand, he says it's like a solemn enlistment. You're giving your name to join a spiritual army, a militia ready to fight against evil. But at the very same time, it's also a joyous wedding procession. You're preparing to be united with Jesus, who he calls the spouse of souls. It's both a battle and a romance, all at once.
So once you enlisted, you didn't just walk right in. Nope, you had to enter this intense period of preparation, a 40-day trial that would actually become the foundation for what we now call the season of Lent. This was your time to build your spiritual house, right from the ground up. 40 days. And that number, 40, is a big deal. It echoes all those biblical stories of trial and preparation. For these candidates, it was a time of deep penitence to prepare body and soul for the huge transformation that was coming. It's a tradition that, of course, lives on today. Cyril literally describes it as a construction project. First, you lay the foundation with really rigorous study of scripture and doctrine. Then, you raise the walls through moral purification, prayer, fasting, stuff like that. And finally, you fortify the whole structure with exorcisms. Now, I know to our modern ears that sounds pretty intense, but back then, these were seen as prayers of spiritual cleansing, designed to clear out any negative influences before the sacred ritual of baptism. And the whole time, the most crucial thing was your intention. Cyril gave this really stark warning to anyone who might be just going through the motions. He's basically saying, you might be able to fool the people around you, but you can't fool God. Sincerity was everything. So after 40 days of this intense preparation, the journey finally reaches its climax, the mystery of baptism. And this wasn't just a ceremony. This was the moment where all that theology, all the studying and praying, it all became this tangible, life-changing reality. Right at the heart of the ritual was this profound moment of choice. The catechumens would physically face west, the direction of darkness, and renounce Satan and all his works. And this wasn't just about sorcery. It included public entertainment like the theater and horse races, which were seen as totally tied to pagan culture. Then they would turn 180 degrees to the east, toward the rising sun, and profess their new faith. Every single physical action here was just dripping with symbolism. You'd strip off your old clothes, shedding your former life. You'd stand naked, not as a source of shame, but to be like Adam in paradise before the fall. Then you're anointed with oil from head to toe, preparing you for spiritual battle. And finally, you're fully immersed in the water, signifying death to your old self and rebirth into a completely new life. But that kind of raises a question, right? With all the elements in the world, why was water the absolute center of this transformative grace? See, for Cyril, the answer was simple but also really profound. Water isn't just something you clean with. It's a primary life-giving element. It was there at the very dawn of creation. So using water for baptism connects your personal new beginning to the very beginning of the world itself. But coming out of that water wasn't the finish line. Nope. In fact, a whole new journey was just beginning. The convert was fundamentally changed, given a new name and a whole new identity within the community. Your official status literally changed. You were no longer a catechumen, remember, one who was learning. You are now a fidele, one of the faithful. You had passed the test, you'd completed the initiation, and now you were a full member of the family. And Cyril describes this new reality with these rich, beautiful botanical metaphors. He says you're no longer like a wild, uncultivated branch. You've been grafted onto the good olive tree, totally integrated into the life of Christ, becoming part of the holy vine. And this new identity wasn't just symbolic. It had immediate practical consequences.
As one of the faithful, you could now stay for the entire service and, for the very first time, receive the Eucharist. This was the most sacred ritual of the Christian community, and it had been kept a secret from you until this very moment. Okay, so why are we talking about this ancient guide today? Why does it matter so much? Well, because Cyril wasn't just training new recruits. He was creating a blueprint. He was preserving the core beliefs and practices of the early church in its most important city, Jerusalem. You have to think of these lectures as an invaluable time capsule. They give us this direct, unfiltered look at what Christians believed, how they worshipped, and what they valued in the 4th century, right after the great persecutions had finally ended. It's like finding a detailed field guide to an ancient world. Let's take the Bible, for instance. Cyril told his students to read exactly 22 specific books from the Old Testament. This is a crucial moment in history where we can see church leaders actively defining what was and what was not considered sacred scripture. It's a process that helps shape the Bible we have today. I mean, his influence was absolutely massive. Cyril's teachings helped formalize the structure of the creed, define those biblical books, and really solidify the rituals of baptism and the Eucharist. He was also a key voice in explaining the super complex doctrine of Christ being both fully human and fully divine, a concept that people were fiercely debating at the time.
But building the house of faith also meant defending it, and Cyril did not shy away from controversy. He issued these sharp, really pointed warnings against different groups and teachers that he considered heretics, people he thought were corrupting the core message of the faith.
And he could be pretty witty about it, too. For example, he completely dismissed this hugely influential teacher named Mani by making a pun on his name. In Greek, it sounded a lot like the word mania, for madness. It was a clever and memorable way to discredit a rival theology, and it just goes to show how high the stakes were in these doctrinal battles.
And all of this leaves us with a final thought. Cyril's lectures were a guide for his time, for sure. But the rituals, the symbols, and the core beliefs he so carefully laid out, they didn't just vanish. They evolved, and they left this indelible mark on Christianity. It really makes you wonder, how do these ancient words and actions continue to echo in the rights and identities of millions of people all over the world today?